Bienvenidos, mi amigos. Oh, I'm about to start another week. Should be interesting, I think, in a good way. I'm going to be going to Concord, Ontario, Canada, which Vaughan, Toronto area for people who may be familiar with that. And picking up a loaded trailer, because we have, at the company I work for, typically most loads that pick up or deliver anywhere around Toronto, we have a bunch of local guys, like they're company employees that drive day cabs that do it, like city trucks, right? Because most OTR guys don't want to fuck around in the city. I mean, it's the least profitable place for us to drive in. And it helps balance out the fact that there are plenty of guys that are very content with city work because they don't want to be away from home for long periods of time or anything like that. That's totally cool. Like people want to do regional or local work, and that's totally fine. So this way it kind of works out for everybody. And like I said, I personally don't much care for driving around in Toronto. It's, I don't know how you word it. It's just busy. It's busy all the time. It's slowly kind of not having it's slowly beginning to not have a rush hour, right? It's just all the time is rush hour, effectively. Which, well, it's neither here nor there, I suppose, but it's still it's frustrating, right? It can be a very frustrating town to go through. And I mean, I have to go through it later today, and I'll likely film it just so that, again, people from, say, the U.S. can kind of see what it's actually like when, again, a lot of Canadians claim that, the 401's the busiest city around. What the fuck was that? Oh, my turn. Or at least the 401 highway through Toronto is the busiest highway around. And, again, I don't think most people believe it, but it's a pretty big thing. So let's see if this guy's cab over's here. It is. I think he's finally stopped using it. It's a nice old International. One of the Eagles. Like a non-piece of shit International cab over. I gotta see if I can talk to old man Stevens about letting me take it out for a riff one of these days. Oh, my guitar wants to come to the front. That's outstanding. It's one of the downsides. Hold on. Fucking stupid thing. I clearly, when I packed up or went home for the weekend, I didn't really pay attention to how I had stuff set up in the back of my truck. So I had my guitar propped up against the wall on my bed, and then I had I think it's my fucking TV, because I don't have a mount for it yet, lying flat on my bed, so the guitar fell over, which is fine, it didn't break anything, and the guitar's not really worth a lot of money. I was trying to throw it back on the bed, but it's trying to sit on top of the TV screen, which means it's trying to fucking slide right back off onto the floor, so I just put it on the floor with a sharp lean against the bed so that it shouldn't go anywhere. So I'm sure I'll get tons of comments about me fucking abusing musical instruments now. It was a $150 cheap acoustic guitar that I knew could, I mean, it's a Fender, but it's not it's not a nice Fender, right? Like my brother picked up a nice Fender acoustic, and I don't know what the models are of acoustics. I've never been that into acoustic guitars, but it's actually got the Fender headstock. Mine's got the 3 on a side, almost like a Gibson style headstock. So it's not really it's not a fancy enough Fender to even get the Fender headstock, right? So, where was I here? Yeah, so it's the highway itself is fairly busy. It said at some points it's like 16 lanes wide, and all 16 lanes will be fucking just dead stop with fucking traffic. And I'm sure it will be today, because it's the one downside with these types of loads is we've mostly managed to get shippers and receivers to start working with us with regards to our hours of service, but nobody still cares about rush hour. So this load was scheduled to load. I'm hoping it was noon, and my dispatch didn't screw up. So I'm told I'm supposed to meet the trailer already loaded at 2 p.m. and I'm setting up to be late. It's already after 2 p.m. here now. But because the guy's just leaving the trailer there. It's not like it's I'm not loading anything. I'm not like on a time crunch that way. Unless the guy's one of them fucking morons. Like, oh, I can't disconnect because the trailer will get cold. Look, you asshole, they sat here for a whole extra hour. If that be the case, then he's a fucking idiot, because these trailers are well insulated. They're designed to sit, with not connected to heat for days before they actually get cold, right? And when you think about it, fucking Farmer John up ahead. Actually, that looks like a greeter. If you think about it, right, when you put a load of chocolate that's around 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the trailer, right, which is about 45, almost 50 degrees Celsius into the trailer, a piece of chocolate or a chocolate bar at that heat will cool off fairly quick. But when you're 40,000 pounds of chocolate, it's the reasoning behind why larger bodies of water freeze after puddles do, right? It takes a lot longer for a large body of any warm liquid to cool off. Add to that, the trailer is insulated to try to, prevent it from cooling off. And what you get is a load that will stay warm for, I wouldn't leave it for a couple of days, but I'd leave it usually, as now, especially now because it's above freezing, I'll leave my truck off overnight, right, and just run the bunk heater if it gets cold. In the dead of winter, and some of those days where it was 30 below, at that point you're not shutting the truck off regardless, because the truck won't start in the morning if you do that. But even when it's 10, 15 below freezing Celsius, I'm not super good on Fahrenheit. That would be somewhere around the 15 to 20 degree above zero mark in Fahrenheit. Below freezing, but not frighteningly below freezing. I would still run the truck like every couple of hours, turn it on for 2 hours, shut it off after 2 hours. It can fuck with your sleep cycle a bit, but I always found I almost got a better sleep if I took like 2-hour power naps, got up, stretched a little bit, took a leak or something, and then went back to bed. Everybody's different. I think most people's sleep cycles are not that way, but it worked out just fine for me. But again, now that it's getting warmer, I don't have to do it at all. Instead, I can leave the truck off all night and it'll be fine. We have a couple of trailers that don't insulate very well. Right? That sometimes happens. The trailer that I've got today, I think, is one of the better ones. Don't quote me on it, because I still haven't figured out their numbering system. See, I with most trucking companies, right, typically the higher the number on a piece of equipment, the newer the equipment is, right? Because the owner picked a number he started with, and everything subsequently bought after that would be the next number in sequence. That's not the case here. They seem to be all over the place. I think part of it might be that they've been replacing trailers in the fleet, but they're not, they're just substituting the trailers in. So when, say 68-18 gets too old and it gets retired, they buy a new trailer and they call it 68-18. So you end up with trailers that are numerically, at least by logic, older than than another trailer, but is actually newer. And same thing, like all their 72 series, I was under the impression their 72 series were the newest trailers we had, because one of the 72 series, the first one I pulled, was one of the newest trailers we had. But then I discovered that most of the 72 series trailers are some of the oldest. So again, I honestly have no idea how my company numbers its equipment. I'm assuming the trucks are pretty straightforward. My truck number is 733. I'm probably the 733rd person to work for the company. They don't, well, no, that's probably pretty high. I think, but again, it could have been we started at a different series of numbers too. The owner could have picked his favorite number and gone up from there. Sorry, I need to drink the water. Oh, man. I'm drying right out. And like I said, it doesn't really matter, I suppose. The equipment is the equipment. It just makes it difficult to kind of predict unless you really know a trailer already. You know, as somebody that's still fairly new to the company, it's a little bit difficult to predict what type of trailer I'm going to be pulling down the road. Now again, I've had a single out of service problem with a trailer since I started here. Which one just had a leak on a fitting on a brake pod. So it wasn't even like it would have been out of service had I been caught, right? I caught it on my pre-trip. Do your pre-trip, kids. You catch shit like that. But you know, like my compressor on my truck could more than keep up with the leak. But it was still, you know, if I could pull over and a DOT officer happens to hear that, no, I'm in trouble. You know, beyond that, you know, any of the trucks I've had, or trailers I've had, whether it be like the newest one in the fleet or a dirty old Scal, they've all been pretty good. Right? They're all mechanically sound. Tanker, like food grade tanker trailers are not cheap. So I can understand why companies typically tend to keep their trailers as long as humanly possible and only switch them out, you know, when they absolutely have to. You know, a good example, well, ours is a good example. But, you know, I shouldn't even say much. I don't really know. I haven't seen a lot of the other tanker companies hauling like beat up old trailers. You know, it might be that the company I work for is less interested in appearance. But to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they bought our fleet of, like, our actual fleet trucks are kind of like, they had 386s. They ran those for the longest time, and obviously those are discontinued. So they switched to Cascadias, and you know, the Cascadias are all pretty junky looking, and I think part of it is the mindset of the guys that are in charge. Like I was having a big talk with a shop guy who is in charge of, you know, basically he specs the trucks, presents it to the owner, and the owner yays or nays it. He's very much a practical-minded guy in the sense that, you know, his exact words yesterday were, "It's a piece of equipment. I don't fucking care what it looks like." You know, he's saying, like, he's talking like they're having a hard time keep getting drivers in because a lot, like most of their trucks are now automatics. Because everybody comes in wanting a standard. It's like, you know, don't understand with these guys. Like, it's, you know, it's a piece of equipment, and it's difficult to explain to somebody. And he's not wrong. Like that's it's just a different way of thinking when it comes to trucking. And I've touched on this before with, you know, especially with people buying their own trucks, like, you know, guys that buy trucks like mine versus guys that buy like beat up, you know, or not even beat up, like buy Volvos or, you know, Cascadias and things like that. I like to feel good about my job. I mean, I live in this thing for a large portion of time. I want to be proud of it. I want to look at it and enjoy it. You know, I understand I make less money than a guy that does this job in an aerodynamic truck because I'm spending more money on fuel. There's absolutely no way around that. But I like the piece of equipment I'm driving. Right? Again, I mean, in reality, it's really no different when you compare like a Camaro or buying a Challenger to buying a Civic or buying a Harley Davidson as compared to a Honda Shadow, right? The Harley and the Honda are probably better since they're both pleasure vehicles. The Harley costs more, right? No, I guess it's not so much the vehicle. The cars are better because the fuel's different. Like the trucks don't cost phenomenally different. Like, my buddy just bought a Freightliner Coronado. He paid $160 Canadian. I paid $185 for this, so it's a $25,000 difference. But his truck's not really going to be that much different on fuel than mine is because he's still got a long hood on the front. But it's both a Challenger or a Harley and a Honda will do the same job, right? Both motorcycles will do what motorcycles do, right? They'll do the thing. It's why when I go out, I don't fault anybody that drives around on a Honda. I mean, I have a Harley, but if somebody's out on a Honda, somebody's out on a little fucking Suzuki or like we have a buddy of ours that used to have a little single-cylinder Suzuki Savage, and he'd go ripping on that thing all the time, right? Because the idea there is that, regardless of how you're doing it, you're out on two wheels, or for some people three. And again, I don't hate on people that drive like the Spiders or anything. Like, the desired feeling that we're all attempting to chase by buying those types of recreational vehicles is the same, right? We're all supposed to kind of respect each other for our love of that type of a feeling, I guess, rather than, because I got a Harley and a big swinging dick, that makes me fucking better than you. Like, it's not really... A, it wouldn't fly because a lot of my friends still do drive Hondas and Metro Cruisers. B, I started on a Metro Cruiser, so I can't say shit, right? What was I going to say here? So a Harley costs more money. Motorcycles, I mean, they're not really much different on fuel. A Harley will have a bigger displacement, but even if you compare a Sportster to like an 1100 V-Star or an 1100 Shadow or something like that, and I know Honda doesn't make their Shadow line the same way anymore. Your fuel consumption is going to be similar, right? There's similar displacement at that point. But the Sportster will cost more, right? I was looking at Shadows that were 11 to 12. Sportsters start at 16. No, they're at 13 now. You get I looked at 13,899 Canadian. I was at Harley the other day with my brother, just looking around. But the Harley, to me, looks cooler, right? I mean, they're Harley Davidsons. They've managed to fairly successfully maintain their look and kind of iconic, I don't know what you'd call it, image for over 100 years now, I think. So there's a reason why I have a Harley. They're beautiful bikes. There's a reason why I have a Peterbilt. And there's absolutely no shame in somebody saying, I would rather have more money in my own pocket and I get the same feeling out of riding a Honda Shadow or buying a Honda Shadow, right? Neither side is wrong, but you have to be able to understand both sides to actually be able to accept both sides, right? Because I get guys, why the fuck would you buy one of those? Big Harley Davidson, you must have a fucking tiny wiener. Fucking, I do just fine on my Shadow or on my Yamaha. And it's like, why did you, I could turn that around. Well, why'd you buy that little fucking baby bike? Blah, 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 blah. And I get that a lot of people will tear into somebody else because somebody from that person's demographic is torn into them at some point. But it's like, treat others how you want to be treated, right? It's the same thing not the same thing with trucking, because we're not talking about how people get treated, but a lot of people, when it comes to driver retention, right? Truck drivers spend literally, when they're on the road, they're spending probably close to 90 to 95% of their time in that truck, right? The other 5% to 10% is eating, sleeping, or eating, showering, and going to the bathroom, and, I guess dealing with customers and stuff. But the absolutely largest majority of time in a trucker's work day or a trucker's work week is spent in or next to, very close to his truck. So to state, it's just a piece of equipment, who cares what it's like? And that begins to be, that's easy for the head shop guy to believe, because at most he takes it out for a day. But when you have to live in it, you begin to appreciate things like a nice homey wood grain dash or a built-in fridge, right? Or cabinet space. there are, again, there's perks and benefits, and like there's a reason why, like if you look at European trucks, a lot of European trucks are going to, like, or at least did for the longest time. I think the trend is going away from it again. But we're a lot of browns and tans in the interior, right? I mean, my own truck right now, the interior is the Saharan tan, is what it's called, rather than the Arctic gray. And the reason being is that tan is a warmer color, right? It is a more what's the word I'm looking for here? It's a roomier color. It reminds you of like a nice study with a fireplace crackling and some books on it on the bookshelf. Like it, the feelings it evokes, right, are one of home. Right? And I mean, again, lots of people have different definitions of what home is, but for me, that's exactly what it was. So having the wood grain on the tan in my interior makes the truck feel very much like, again, like you're in a nice study with a nice, again, a fireplace crackling and a good book to read. Like, it just feels like a room to be in. It's a nice place to sit. But when you're driving a truck that is very plain, and that's not to say, like, comfort features are a totally different thing, but I've seen guys or companies that spec trucks that are just as cheap as you can get. And it's like, your dashboard has got like some of the newer ones, they only got like 5 or 6 gauges, right? So you don't even know half the shit that's going on with the truck. It's black on black, no fucking chrome gauges, like no chrome bezels, so you got a black dashboard just with black rings around the dash. Just a gray interior, seats that, half of the passenger seats are just bolted to the floor. Because I've seen that quite a bit, actually. And for somebody that maybe takes a passenger with them, having a passenger seat bolted to the fucking floor is horse shit. But there's lots of, the kind of, I guess it's the stereotypical mega carrier or fleet truck, right? It's a piece of shit that it gets the job done. Right, but there's nothing fun about it for the driver. So there's those mindsets, right? Fuck, this guy's fucking pulling a lot of coal here. For some people, I guess, yeah, that idea again where you're fucking stinks, dude. Where you're basically shutting your body or yourself down while you're on the road, so it doesn't really matter what the truck looks like, right? It doesn't need to be a nice truck because you're not a human while you're on the road, right? You're working and you get your paycheck, and that's what you're looking for. That's totally fine, but I think a lot of truck drivers are, especially OTR guys, are typically not about that life. Most guys want a little bit of comfort and what's a good word for it here? Like something they feel like they're coming home to at the end of the day, right? Like, that's why guys, companies or guys want the bigger sleepers or the nicer interiors in trucks, because again, having even just something like a fridge is a huge boon for somebody that's out on the road, right? Because again, OTR work, like local work is one thing. You're driving around a day cab, like, yeah, absolutely. It's like driving a work pickup all day or something like that. Like, it doesn't need to be the Taj Mahal because you're only in it for 8 to 10 hours, if that, and then you go home, right? But when you sleep in it, when you're living in that vehicle, I think that vehicle should be a little bit nicer than what a lot of guys are getting. So, like, our company's Cascadias they're plain, right? They're as far as I know, I have not been in one. According to our shop guy, they're pretty plain inside, and that is because he's got that utilitarian mindset where it's a piece of equipment. Like, it doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to do the job. And it's like I said, it's nice to do the job in comfort or in a little bit of style. And while I won't lie, it's pretty hard to make a Cascadia look stylish. Case in point, the first company I ever worked for, they had a hodgepodge of trucks. They screwed up and bought a lot of fucking ProStars. But they also had a couple of Cascadias. And the one thing they'd done with the Cascadias is they had bought the premium interiors in them. So I climbed into a Cascadia that had the wood grain dash, had the bright chrome bezels on the gauge, like had 13 speed on the floor. Like, it actually was not a bad truck at all. Again, it's a Cascadia on the outside. You know it is. It's kind of ugly, but it was actually a really nice truck to drive. It was quiet. It was smooth. The DD15 pulled pretty good in it. But then I left the company for a bit, went and did some other stuff, went to that Scott Lynn lease purchase thing, came back to that company. And then obviously the Cascadia was taken over by somebody else at that point. So I got put in one of the ProStars, and the ProStars were absolute piles of shit. Like, I couldn't believe that somebody would be expected to live in that thing. Like, it was just, it was used, and the previous driver had very clearly didn't care about what the truck was like on the inside, because there were, like, boot prints and stuff on the mattress, like greasy boot prints. Like, the guy, it was either used by a local guy that never slept in it, or one of the shop guys who didn't give a fuck, or some really shitty slob that slept in the bunk with his fucking boots on. And it's like, when I brought it up, well, you can clean it if you want. I said, why the fuck should I have to fucking clean it? And that's the other thing, right? I've seen arguments on both sides here, right? Well, it's not their job to give you a nice, fancy, clean, brand new truck. Fuck, you want to clean it out, clean it yourself. It's like, you need drivers. It's a driver's market right now. If you need employees, at least get the used truck cleaned out so that he's not climbing into someone else's filth, right? Like, I eventually put my foot down and actually, like, I didn't quit, but I took like a 2-week hiatus and said, I'm never driving those trucks again. You put me in a new one, or I'm not coming back to work. So I 2 weeks, they tried to sweat it, and then they finally fucking rented me a truck. So I got an Ideal Lease ProStar, but it had a Cummins in it and 18 speeds, so it's a little bit nicer to drive, rather than the fucking Max Force engines they all had theirs. But it was frustrating that, like, I had to deal with that. And again, the mindset was, well, just what's it matter? It's just a piece of equipment. Like, just do what you got to do to get it running and get home. And it's like, but I'm home for a day and a half and I'm gone again. If I was home every night, I could put up with the bullshit till I get home. But when you're home for a day and a half every week and a half to 2 weeks, that home time, that's not enough home time to recoup from all of the mattress that was about 1.5 inches thick. Actually, that might be a bit of an exaggeration. I think it was about 2 inches thick. It was a fucking yoga mat. Like, I could feel the metal plating and the studs in the metal, or the rivets in the metal plating underneath the bunk. Like, while I slept, like, I ended up with fucking back problems and shit. Like, temporary. Like, I fucked my back up years ago, but it flared it up, kind of things. Like, this, I can't be in this truck anymore. Well, we don't have another one. Go fucking get me one, or I'm going somewhere else. Like, like I said, I got a rental one, and the rental one was still a ProStar, so but it was at far less kilometers on it, and, but it's why, like, at this point, like, I really hope that I never end up in a situation where I'm a company driver again, because the only person that's ever slept in this bunk is me, right? The only person that's driven this truck is me, and my dad has occasionally taken it out for a rip. So I know that there's no, I don't climb into the bunk with my boots on. I don't, my boots don't leave the drive. Well, my boots aren't even in the driver's seat. My boots are next to the seat. Like, I vacuum all the time. I keep the dash clean. Like, I know that anytime this truck gets dirty or cluttered up, it's because of me. It's not because of some other guy that drives it and doesn't give a fuck and just, filths it up. And because he doesn't fucking care, he's totally okay with it being a mess. So he's not going to clean it for me. If I want to clean, fucking, I can clean it all I want, but he's not going to do anything because he doesn't care if I don't clean it. It's like, fuck. Or again, when I worked at that company, we didn't slip seat or anything, but when the truck was in the yard, like, oh shit, we got to do that local run. Oh fuck, grab this truck then real quick, or oh, you got to move some trailers around. I'll grab that truck real quick. Like, nobody's trucks were off limits. It just, your truck was designated to you. But it was just, frustrating. Again, the truck and everything was changed, or, stuff was missing. I had some of my own stuff go missing, like work equipment that I bought. And I found out actually the owner of the company had pulled some of it out because he Gotten in the truck, looked at it. Dan doesn't need all this shit, so he pulled it out thinking that it was his, and I never saw it again because he put it in somebody else's truck, and lo and behold, they went down the road with it. So, you know, with this truck, I have full authority to fly off the handle at anybody that looks at this truck for some reason. Like, you know, if I worked at a place, like I almost worked at a place for a little bit where I was told, like, I was going to be buying the truck and working there, but the truck has to stay at their property, and the owner's going to look at it to make sure it's clean. I said, well, no. I ended up not working there for other reasons, but, you know, I was thinking, no. The truck comes home with me, and you don't ever look at it because it's my truck. Like, it's not your truck. You're not, well, the owner didn't like that. And like I said, that's not the reason I didn't work there. It was actually just my insurance. It was a friend of mine, so the money would have been really good, and I was just going to kind of negotiate my way into not doing that, or just not do it. But that was their idea, was that even if you own the truck, you're supposed to leave it at the yard, and the owner can check it and make sure that you're keeping it clean, because you want to have a clean fleet here. Everybody's got to look good. So that's fine, but inside the truck is inside the truck, and the inside of this truck is getting cluttered, but it's not dirty, right? I've got, you know, some Slim Fast and stuff in the passenger seat, my guitar and things in the back. Like this truck could benefit from more shelving or a slightly bigger bunk, but you know, I can't do that. So I either got to start taking stuff out of here, or, you know, find a better way to store things. It was one nice thing that when I did the lease purchase, the Pete I had, it had the big bunk, but also had the second bed in it. And that second bed just folds in half, so it came up like the perfect guitar shelf. So I could put a lot of stuff up there and keep it all out of the way. So my floor was spotless, because I only had the one bed in this truck. My floor, I ended up being the place for anything that's too big to fit in the cabinets, which is, you know, my guitar and stuff like that. So. But I'm going to cut the video off here, probably do another one, drive along a little bit. Maybe a bit later when I hook up to the trailer. I'm going to eventually figure out how to edit stuff together. I don't know how guys do it, where they do the videos, all 30-second to a minute clips of them doing stuff, because I don't want to fuck around with my phone that much, right? And once it starts playing or recording, I just want to ramble and drive down the road. So I'm not sure guys do all that editing and stuff. Fucking around with your phone way too much while you're driving, I think. But what do I know? So have fun there, kids, and you know, don't do drugs.